Okay, should be recording now. And like that. And we don't necessarily need to see this either, right?
No.
Okay. Mouth is a little weird with the TV, but
Okay, I'll leave those space.
it kind of just, I mean, it works. It's just if you're like moving the mouth around, which you probably won't be, it just,
Oh, I see.
yeah, because my TV is so big, I think.
My computer does that too, though.
Huh?
But when it becomes really big, my computer does that.
Yeah, I think it's a really weird, I tried everything to fix it. It's not. Okay.
Thank you.
So we are recording.
We are recording.
Awesome. Okay, we've got a couple more minutes here. We'll wait.
Okay.
But thank you.
Of course.
Yeah. So you mentioned the city might about cookies. So
Oh, my. Good placement. Yeah.
The fruit is so hard.
So is this rain hitting all of Gainesville or is this just like dumping on campus here?
All of Gainesville.
All of Gainesville, so the centers, so the rain.
Sequence.
center. Yeah, that was awesome. That means I'm getting. It's so dry.
Probably doesn't rain that much out in Utah.
Actually, yeah, right before this started, I was just watching the rain, it's just all the thunder and everything. I love it. It's just like, it's so rare there. That's in a thing. You know, every time it starts raining, it's just like, go watch the rain.
That's
There
a-
were like thunder and everything, and everyone was just so like happy. It's great. It's because normal life,
So,
and rain,
yeah, I'll talk to you about
humidity and all of that.
It's really good. Yeah, so it's great.
Are you from here or
I'm from South Carolina.
South Carolina?
Yeah,
Okay,
so it rains as much.
pretty.
Yeah.
There.
All right. Let's shut the door. I mean, would you grab the door there, please? Okay, can anybody online, would somebody shout out, can you hear us okay?
Yep, we can hear you.
Excellent, okay. All right, thank you, everybody. Welcome to our teaching seminar today for our next candidate for the aquatic weed scientist position open to the Center for Aquatic and Invasive Plants. I'd like to introduce Dr. Mirella Ortiz. So a real quick bio on Dr. Ortiz. She is from the state of Sao Paulo, Brazil. I'm not going to pronounce the name of the town.
You good?
Doing her undergraduate there, and then her graduate work at Colorado State University, both for her master's and for her PhD focused in weed science. Now, she was a stellar graduate student at Colorado State and has won basically every award. So if you want to know how to win the contest in terms of the speaking contest, Dr. Ortiz is a great advisor on that. But she is an assistant professor at Utah State University, focused in weed science there, looking at herbicide physiology, a little bit of molecular biology, and general weed science. Also teaches courses there, Introduction to Integrated Weed Management. And we have asked her to give, again, a 20-minute seminar, an introductory seminar on a specific topic of linking submerged aquatic plant biology and integrated weed management. Following the seminar, we'll open it up for a time of Q&A about the seminar. And then at that point, we will end the Zoom and allow students to have at it with you. So with that, Dr. Ortiz, the floor is yours.
Excellent. Thanks, Chief, and thanks for being here today to see many of the faces that were on my seminar this morning. So I appreciate you guys taking the time to come for this seminar. And I'll just make one comment before starting. Students said that I won several awards, and that is true, but that is a developed skill. So actually I developed a coursework at USU that's called Graduate Student Professional Development. So it's just when you have the right people advising you and helping you, And if you put the effort, it is a developed skill. So if you don't like making presentations, I hated to be out there and I never thought I would love to teach someone as much as I do because I feared public speaking so much, but everything is trainable. So you all can do it. So most students here, everybody with the center work on aquatics, anybody with the retro weeds, everybody aquatic weeds. Everything. Just.
Is everybody aquatic weeds?
But I'm gonna try, it's not a rhetorical question, I need to know if everybody's aquatic
Not
or.
quite.
Not quite, okay, no, that's great, okay, that's good to know, because, I do have some, terrestrial things to link the management and it's perfect, otherwise I would just skip it. So,
The chair, sorry, because I have to leave, right after, would that be okay? Yeah. Sorry. Musical chairs. How are you with asking questions during the presentation, or should we all wait?
do it, no, don't wait, if you have any questions as I'm going, I might get a little over the 20 minutes, but please ask it, I hate just dumping information as an instructor, I like that feedback and talking and just wanna know what questions you have and just to push you, a little bit, so. Okay, so the objectives of my presentation today is for you guys to understand the biology of submerged species only. We're not gonna talk about emergent and terrestrial species, so fully aquatic submerged species, and learn how biological insights in these species inform integrated weed management. So I'd like to start. So most of the terrestrial students, are you guys just dealing with crops? Is it agronomy, weeds, everything?
Natural areas.
Metro areas, okay, so if you had to say, what is the most important part of weed biology in an integrated weed management? So integrated weed management, we're gonna cover later, but it's just using as many tools as you have in your toolbox to manage an invasive species. It can be terrestrial, aquatic, it can be fish, it can be anything. So you just use all the tools that you have to minimize undesired impacts. So if you're thinking of the species that you're trying to control, if you have to do one thing, let's talk about plants. Do you think it's life cycle? Do you think it's reproduction? What
Because I'm in soils, I'm gonna say, is it attached to some sort of sediment?
is it attached to some, that is a good question. Is it, it's important for you to know, is your plant staying there, going away, what's happening? Any other guesses? And there's no right or wrong answer, it's just every part is important. What is the most important one? Is it attached? Maybe yes, maybe not. For me, the most important part is, are you controlling the correct weed? Because all the methods you're gonna use, if you don't have the correct weed identified, then all of your reports are gonna go down waste. So you need to know what you're dealing with for mechanical control, for physical control, for chemical control, for all of the control, you need to know what species you're talking to. Because as we're gonna see, the biology of the plant will change slightly how you do your management, and we're gonna learn a little bit more about that. So what are the ecological impacts of having invasive species? Native species, aquatic species for the non-aquatic people, they're very important for diversity, waterfall, food sources and fish communities. And they stabilize shorelines, provide water clarity and nutrient cycling. On the other hand, we have all the invasive species that we don't want in our water bodies because they just place all of that native species. They're usually way more competitive. They either grow faster or they germinate earlier in the season. They can just displace all of that native populations. And with that, we also displace and lose all of the native community, native fish, native macro vertebrates, waterfall, food sources, and all of that. So we don't want all of that native biodiversity to be gone. And also the invasive species, they do impact water quality. Once you have just one submerged weed growing in your water body, usually it tops out, it mets out all of that water body. You have just a lot of oxygen depletion by biomass decay and just lack of oxygen exchange with the air as well. Temperature increase, because when you have a situation like this is a picture from the IFAS website actually. this is not land, this is water. So imagine everything that's changed down below. There's no sunlight going through all this biomass. So any other plants, either invasive or native, will not grow with all this mat. That's why we need to control those weeds to make sure we have adequate environment for all the native biodiversity. So integrated weed management, as I said, is just using all the tools that we have in our toolbox to provide the best control of our target species, providing the least impact on the environment. So we reduce the reliance on a single method. What are all the methods of control that we have? Mention a few.
Mechanical.
Mechanical, chemical, cultural, biological. Excellent, covered all of those pretty much. I'm calling physical and cultural about the same. And the base of everything is prevention. So the cheapest way for you to manage a weed is to prevent the introduction of that weed. It's just in the long run, nothing will be cheaper than prevention. So let's look at each of these methods. And as we're going, I'm going to give some cues of what is important to know about plant biology. And then I'm going to get to the plant biology at the end and kind of tie everything together. So prevention in aquatic or in any weeds is just preventing the introduction and spread of the plant. Physical methods for us is physical manipulation of the plants or their habitats, mechanical, the physical removal of all those aquatic plants from the water, biological control using natural enemies, insects or fish being more successful. We're going to talk about that. And then chemical control, obviously using herbicides to control the plants. So prevention is, I would say probably the number one for Florida is hard. What is not here, right? But I'm from
Giant Salvinia.
Giant Salvinia. There you go. So
Very limited here.
so coming from Colorado and Utah, we have original milfoil, curly leaf, paired feather, and that's it. So prevention is the most important tool that we have to use, and it requires public education and awareness campaigns. So if people, weed manager, population, people cannot correctly identify weeds, how can we prevent the weeds to come? So a new plant comes in, it's like, oh, look at the beautiful flower. They think it's amazing. It grows and then it takes over and just displays all of the natives that there is. Any regulations to prevent the spread? So in Utah specifically, we don't have any poaching regulation for aquatic plants. So there is required boat cleanings, but for mussels only. So nobody cares or they do nothing about the aquatic plants. So that's something I'm trying to push there. And I just want to mention real quick the one successful case, which is the flowering rush story in Colorado. You know that one, Stephen? So, we did it. So for prevention about plant biology, what is important about it? Plant ID. So if population, public, county weed managers, extension factory, if the people cannot correctly identify the weed, they will not even know that's there. So a new population starts, a new infestation starts, and nobody will do anything about it because as weed scientists, the center cannot possibly watch the whole state of Florida. So we need to have little arms everywhere to help us out. And for prevention, weed ID is the most important part of biology for us. So prevention, actually, let me just go back one slide. So this is flowering rush for the ones that are not aware. When it's not flowering, it looks exactly like any other grasses growing in marsh areas. It can grow as a complete submerged species in dry land as well. Just needs a little bit of moisture. It reproduces through seeds, flowers, rhizomes, tubers, do everything you can imagine flowering rush can do. It's like the goat of the aquatic plant. It's really hard to control it. Nothing really works and it just spreads like crazy, very fast. Although when it's flowering, very easy to tell apart. So it has this umbel flowers that they're somewhat pretty as the majority of the other weeds. And once it's flowering, you can tell it fairly easily. And then so in Colorado, one of the county weed supervisors, very sharp lady, was able to identify flowering rush growing in a drainage ditch those plants were flowering, and then she talked to the EDR team with the Colorado Department of Ag, and they went there. It was flowering rush. She was the one that was able to detect early enough. And in that same year, they were able to clear out the whole flowering rush from that drainage ditch. So CDA goes back every year to today to that same area, just looking that nothing escaped. And that was even before I got to Colorado State, so maybe 10, 15 years ago. And based on her knowledge and everything that she did in contacting the CDA, they were able to prevent the spread of flowering rush in Colorado. And that drainage ditch emptied directly into the Colorado River. So the size, the potential damage that that small population of plants could have done, it is actually really hard to put a dollar value into that. It's just, it could have been millions of dollars if they were dedicated eventually to control that, but hundreds of thousands for sure, plus all the ecological damage, not only financial damage. So prevention, when possible, when you don't have every single species on your state, it is the number one tool that you have to save your money going forward. Physical control includes the use of benthic barriers, drawdowns, dive-assisted dredging or hand pulling, same thing, removing all the plants from there. I have usually pros and cons of every one. So for physical, for every control method, pros of physical control usually provides immediate results. It can be very effective in small areas, big areas, just not cost effective at all. It would cost you a lot of money. And also very labor intensive and potential for habitat disturbance. For example, when you have a benthic barrier, you're just not letting sunlight reach that soil and nothing will grow. No invasive, but no natives as well. So you need to watch out for that. So what is very important to keep in mind is just your plant community in general. Everything that you have there, all the natives, all the invasives, all the fish, all the invertebrates, everything that's growing in that area, because you are going to affect everything. If you have a monoculture of just hydrilla, put it down and that's it. But if you have any native species that you're trying to be selective and save those ones, the use of, especially the benthic barriers, might not be what you want to do. Mechanical control, just the use of numerous machines to remove all of that biomass from the water body. We have aquatic harvesters that cuts off the plant, remove from the water, just cutters, you cut it first and you remove it later. The pros, no water use restrictions, and a lot of these pros, they are overlapping between different techniques and everything, but the cons are quick reinfestations through plant fragments. Which aquatic plants reproduce through fragments? Majority of them, especially the submerged. So this is when it becomes important for you to know your plant biology. Is it doable for me? How quick the reinfestation is going to happen? Can you do it any time? When would you do mechanical control? Early in the season, late in the season? Usually when you have more biomass, so you have a lot of biomass to remove from that water body. Otherwise, you're just spending a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of gas, manpower, and everything to remove a little bit of biomass. Is it the best moment for you to use mechanical control early in the season? Maybe not. So this is when you need to know for mechanical control your peak biomass. When is the aquatic plant growing the most, so you can have the most, a big bang for your buck, whatever you say. So once you go out there, you can actually remove the most biomass. And then we have biological control, which is the use of very specific living organisms to control another living organisms. For us, aquatic plants, we have the use of several insects. They are usually not as effective as grass carp. Grass carp is highly effective in hydrilla. It will eat almost anything, but you do need to be careful. So the pros, somewhat permanent, more in terrestrial systems, very permanent once you have a population established. There's not much you need to do about it. In aquatics, slightly different, but somewhat. And then the cons is that it takes time. So if you want something that is controlled right away, biological control is not your option. It will take several years for you to achieve the desired levels of control. So here again, with ID, so if you're doing, for example, this is the milfoil weevil. If you insert a insect that's specific, so biological control, besides the grass carp, because it eats a lot of weeds, but you usually have one insect that will eat one specific plant, either aquatic or not. No biological control is approved for use if it's not specific to that one plant. Otherwise, we could be bringing insects from other countries that could potentially become problematic here as well. So they're highly, highly, highly specific. If you don't have the right weed, you're just wasting your money. Your insect's gonna die because it's highly specific. They're usually very expensive. About $1 a bug is a general good number to say that. You need hundreds of bugs per area. So if you don't have a bug that will be successful, again, the weed ID, I think it's the most important part. And then the use of chemical control. I use in my lesson, so I love your guys's photos. So we have contact and systemic herbicides. Contact herbicides does not translocate inside the plant, so whatever the herbicide touches the plant, it kills that plant right there. And the systemic herbicides, they move inside the plant. Why is it important for us to know when to use, about what is important for us to know about plant biology that changes which herbicide we're gonna use or not? I think for production would be important, how the plants reproduce. Yes, if it's a perennial plant, it reproduces through rhizomes and it has life cycle of the plant, it's a perennial plant. You wanna make sure you control that root crown. You control those rhizomes and the stolons and everything. So we do wanna use a herbicide that translocates inside the plant. Otherwise, you're just gonna control the above ground biomass. And guess what? Next summer, that root crown, the stolons, those tubers, everything that's below ground, they'll just sprout again. So we do need to know the life cycle of our plant, how it reproduces. So we can decide on, even within chemical control, what herbicide is the best one for us to use. And then application methods, we have floating and submerged plants. We're focusing on submerged here, but just to mention that when you have floating plants or emergent aquatic plants, it provides you the opportunity to do selective control of the plants that you're dealing with. So life cycle of the plant, reproduction means how is that plant reproducing is very important for you when you're gonna choose your herbicide. So here's for people that know terrestrial weeds, but I guess it's weeds specifically. So the importance of understanding plant life cycles, annual versus perennial, and the timing of growth phases for optimal control. So here for terrestrial weeds, we have annual weeds to the left and perennial weeds to the right, and some of the states. When do you think for annual weeds, we can have the highest control of weeds? For chemical control. So if we spray weeds and they are emerging and they're very small, seedling, vegetative state, flowering or maturing, when do you think we could control an annual plant, the one that goes through the whole cycle within a year?
Emerging.
Excellent, yes, emerging, because if you spray a plant when it's flowering, it's about to die anyways. It's an annual plant, already set seeds. And it's not gonna do any good. What about perennial weeds? Remember, perennial weeds, they need to keep stocks of carbohydrates and sugars in those roots. When do you think would be the best timing to spray a perennial plant, terrestrial plant? So it's dormant, you have the roots, rhizomes, whatever, starts germinating. So you have the plant growing and then it's budding and flowering, and then start moving all of those sugars and carbohydrates to the roots soon after flowering. So we can go dormant again for the next season. So when do you think would be the best timing to control a perennial plant? So when it's germinating, it's moving all the sugars from the roots to the tips, so we can grow. And once right after flowering, is moving everything from the shoots to the roots. So when would you spray a perennial plant, on the other hand?
The fall.
In the fall, exactly. So this is how this looks good. So in the fall, right after flowering into fall, so knowing your weed is very important. So you know even the right moment to use one of the tools that we have in our toolbox. But this is terrestrial weeds, right?
Yeah, I do. So you're only assuming you can spray once?
No, you can spray several times. So
Okay.
that's actually a great question. So different herbicides, so pre-emergent herbicides, even before germinating, they would be even
Yeah.
better. So you start controlling all of those plants even before they germinate. So no, excellent question. Several sprays per year, different herbicides, different mode of action. So we delay resistance and always make sure we stay within label if we do the same herbicide application in 1 year.
Can I ask one more question?
Absolutely.
So I know with IPM and croplands, they have like a economic threshold to meet.
Yes.
Is that ever incorporated into this? I know you've got weed control when that occurs. I'm just curious if there's like a point within.
That's a great question. It all depends on what you're
Yeah,
what you're
your
managing.
goals.
So for cropland, yes, you want like zero, is there such thing as zero weed? But you want that number to be as close to zero as possible. If we're talking about invasive species, rangeland, natural areas, then there is the threshold where it's just the minimum amount of weeds that we can have. And that's very interesting for biological control, because you never reach zero with biological control. And it's a threshold below what you want. And for aquatic weeds, I would say it's the same. It all depends, the water uses, what you use in the water for, is the native population thriving, is the invasive population under control? So yeah, I think for every scenario, there is a threshold, as long as the invasive population is below threshold that you're looking for.
Thank you.
If that answers your question.
Yes.
Sorry. Okay, so then let's look at those facts and info about aquatic plants. So I'm very proud of this picture. I took it and it was 2017. It was a second year master's student, and I made $50 because it was awarded the best picture in the department. So that's why I use it all the time, because I made $50 out of it. What is this? So weed ID, what is this first weed? My aquatic people. Mirella, what is this one? No, not a lot of. But yeah, curly found weed and milfoil, perfect, yes, excellent. So when we're talking about biology of the plant, so let's go this way. So hydrilla is a perennial monocot. It reproduces through fragments, tubers, turions. Is it important to know all that information? Monocot and dicot. Is it that important to know all of that for aquatics as it is for terrestrial? Not as much, so it's not as easy to tell them apart in aquatic system, as you can see. So this is a monocot. It's just to really tell it, it's not as easy as in terrestrial systems, but that will help you to have a game plan for your integrated weed management. We're talking about biological control, so you know about some herbicides that would work in your weed versus the one that wouldn't. But also everything is on the label. If you don't know that information, I wouldn't say that being a monocot or a dicot is the most important part of plant biology for integrated weed management. Know if it's perennial or potentially an annual, yes, that is important, because then we go back to the annual branch. You do want to control your annual plants before they flower anyways. And how they reproduce for aquatics, I would say it's even more important than being perennial. Most of the submerged aquatic plants are perennials anyways, so they're all there, they all come back next year. And how can we utilize this knowledge of reproduction to enhance our integrated weed management techniques? Actually, let me go back before I get to this. So by knowing this, we will know at what time the plants are reaching peak biomass, so we know when to use chemical control. We will know the best time to use chemical control and what chemical to use. For example, plants that produce tubers underground. You absolutely need a systemic herbicide to control those compared to the ones that don't. then the chemical control might be even better for you. This will tell you perfect timings for you to combine your techniques, for example, combining mechanical with chemical control. You go right after peak biomass, you remove a lot of that biomass. Why is that good? Then you have less plant biomass to control, you need less herbicide, and you won't have as much dissolved oxygen in the water column when all of that plant biomass start to decay. So you can, if you have a lot of biomass, you can protect fish by removing the biomass before coming with chemical control. So herbicide application during active growth. So for aquatic plants, usually that thing like, oh, right before flowering, right after, it's not necessarily what we want to do. And if you read the label, which is the law, you need to read the entire label before you do any chemical application. Most of the herbicides will say for best results, apply early in the spring when the weeds are actively growing. So the herbicide needs actively growing plants. Procellacor, oxinic herbicide, same thing, actively growing plants. Do you think that a stressed plant, a plant that's already not doing so well, versus a plant that's happy and healthy, use spray herbicide, which plant will, I guess, respond better and do faster to a chemical application? A plant that's already a little sad, or a plant that's healthy and happy and growing, not resistant to the herbicide, a sensitive plant? Healthy plant? Anybody else? Different guesses?
The one that's weak.
The one that's weak. Why healthy plant?
Just based off the label, say what's there.
Very smart today, yeah. Why weak plants then?
Well, I would say they're already, the reserves are already down.
The reserves are already
Yeah,
down,
or they're
yeah.
already damaged, maybe that would help. Just the response of the herbicide will be greater because they're already suffering.
Excellent, Todd. Would you change your answer now knowing that?
See what I got.
Perfect. So usually, although that's what a lot of people think when you have a plant that's already set, just like, oh, let's spray it a little down, so let's just hit it and we're gonna control it. The plants do not respond. A lot of this herbicides, the plant needs to be photosynthetic.
Yeah,
They need to be growing, they need to be happy to absorb all of the herbicide, translocate where it needs to be translocated. An already upset plant is not translocating all those carbohydrates where they need to go, and usually the herbicides just take an opportunity of all of that movement to go around, and I'm very late here, so sorry, I do get excited. So then after we know and do all of the management strategies, when to use mechanical, when to use biological, which is also a lot like related to water usage restrictions, then you do need to monitor and adjust your strategies based on feedback. Not everything will work the same year exactly the same, based on temperatures and rains and water movement. A strategy that was working last year might not work this year, and we might need to adjust. That's why the integrated weed management involves just using all the tools that we have and integrating all of those methods for a synergistic effect of our control. So this 2 weed species, the last one, plant ID, is this the same plant species? Why not? Is this just a healthier, bigger, better looking plant? And this is, after herbicide treatment, just a little fluorosis here and not as good. They look like they belong to the same family. They have the same leaf shape. The color is slightly different.
The interior. You want to draw it? Or is it like?
Almost. It is so good. One of them is hydrilla. The other one's not.
That's the one we don't have.
It is the one that we don't have. So this is like a siphon. So it's in the same plant family. But if you don't identify, so it looks a lot the same. Looks like hydrilla. So for that prevention, we need to be able to identify, and for control too. So a chemical control that works in this one might not work in this one, and vice versa. So we need to know when peak biomass is not at the same timing. Plants grow and reproduce in different ways, even within the same family, and the plants that look a lot alike. So this is my last slide. So, and my picture again, very proud of it. So regarding plant biology, for us, it's very important to know flowering and natural breakage. A lot of those submerged aquatic plants they will reach water surface to flower, and soon after flower, break on its own. If we're doing any type of control, usually we want to do before that happens. Peak biomass for mechanical control, tuberculum formation. For both mechanicals, it's something that we need to remove that from the soil if possible. For chemical applications or any of them, we want to control the plant before they put all the tubers out. And then just talking about our water uses, so you just think of plant biology and think that that plays alone. So we have all the water uses during summer. We have people playing the water and boats and water uses. So a lot of those strategies, they will be limited to a very short period of time in the year that we can actually use the control methods. Native species present, so we want to make sure we always provide, I guess, an opportunity for the native species to thrive. Water flow, it will change how those fragments are carried to another water body, the chemical control, needs of exposure, and every single characteristic of your management. And with that, I finished my 20 minutes seminar. Thank you.
All right,
Any
questions
questions?
about the seminar? And if you have questions online,
Oh, yeah.
you can raise your hand or put it in the chat box. I'll call that up. Any questions from the group?
Is it possible to use a drone flying in air or in water to monitor what we've grown? Yes, there is. Actually, it is a great question. It is kind of like a newer area for terrestrial and aquatic weeds and crop productions in general. Actually, at Bear Lake right now, we're using a lot of in-water drones to monitor that growth. And I would say the in-water drone is a lot better for weed ID. So the drone goes in the water and you have a tablet that you can actually, like a little fish, you look at the plant close by. Flying drones, their technology is amazing. I'm not a drone specialist, have never done anything like that, but imagery, they are able to, based on color changes, and if you have a system that's developed enough, you are able to detect those plants. But I'd say it's very, especially in Florida, you have so many weeds all the time, and so similar someplace like Colorado, and where you have one specific plant colonizing a whole water body easier. It is possible, yes. I just think we still have a little ways to go. In the future, I see drone being amazing, but it's not, you guys, it's still happening. You guys trying?
She might have a few comments on that topic.
Yeah. Is it, so your project with drones?
Yeah, my project's with drones. I think you're right. It's smart. We have a ways to go. It's a little bit more complicated and
I
natural.
was gonna ask you, how easy is it? So I think in the future is gonna be a great tool.
Absolutely.
It's gonna be amazing, but it's just, right now we need people like you guys doing the research. So in the future, we can actually do the management. But no, I think, great question. In the future, yes, right now, needs more work.
Any other questions from the room here?
We're talking about biological controls and how they need to be very specific for them to be approved. So I was just curious, how did grass carp get approved? Because they eat everything. Like, what did that look like and why?
That's a great question. So, as part of the registering system for so a biological agent is a natural enemy to the plant. So it's brought from where the plant is native. It's a natural enemy. So in its native range, it stays within ecological balance because it has those natural enemies. We bring it here to eat and control that plant and that plant specifically. I think so. Grass carp came from, I think, Asia. Yeah, Southeast Asia, somewhere there. It prefers hydrilla, but it eats a lot of things. And I think we learned early on that it can become a problem here. So that's why we need to use sterile grass carps. So early on, they can gain a lot of weight by eating a lot. And I'm not necessarily 100% sure how it got here, but I know because it's not that specific and when we eat anything, we can have a problem with that species. That's why they have to be specific. Because if it's a insect, any type of biological control that will feed on anything, then we're gonna lose control of that population. That's how biological control keeps in check with the invasive species. So the amount of plant and insects, they're always kind of following each other. The more weeds you have more insects, and then it goes down. That's why with biological control, you can never achieve 100% of control because it never gets to that point. With the carpet, I don't know, I've never done any biological control work, so I do know we got out of control when it was first used as biological control. That's why we need the triploid sterile carp, because otherwise they be control of your plants and I would have grass carp.
I have a question, but I didn't want to take, I mean, I'm in the front, I can't see what.
You're good, I think, it seems like.
Are you sure?
Any other questions?
All right, last question.
Okay, I wanted to go back to your original objectives for this talk and see what they were again. Yeah, I'm just, so
There we go.
I want to see if, did everybody feel like they learned?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Biology of submerged aquatic plants and in 20 minutes, so they're the whole semester.
Introductory lecture, got some.
It's to be for multiple classes.
Yeah.
Okay,
You can't, yeah, sorry, I should have said that earlier, it's just.
Oh, you may have said it and I just missed it. Yeah, no, I didn't.
So I guess mainly learn how biological insights, and I guess the biology of submerged aquatic plants, I was thinking of the hydrilla, my price picture and how those three species are produced differently and how it's important to know how they were produced so we can achieve and do proper
Yeah.
management, integrated with management plan.
So these would be topics then that you would follow up with in the following weeks and.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So my course, I do 2 lectures on each of the methods and one in integrated with management and plant biology, like 2 lectures too.
Thank you.
All right, last question, Pat.
Okay, yeah, sorry.
It's okay.
So
that's you, 0.
So how much time is required, how much time and energy is required to study and understand the biology of the plant versus studying the more chemical control aspects of those plants?
Excellent. So are
Separate
you
those.
asking from a research standpoint or management standpoint? Once you learn, you have, because those are, the questions you're gonna ask about biology and control, there's slightly different for research and management.
Okay, well then maybe that's kind of maybe that question has 2 answers
For
then.
both,
So,
or-
yeah, because I'm just kind of wanting to know, I mean, how much do you focus on one or how do you balance those 2?
That's an excellent
Have a
question.
full-
So for research, it's just, what are you curious about? What will fun allow you to do? What do you want to answer? So for research, it's just a lot more fun, just like, I want to learn about the biology and response of milfoil to this specific herbicide. So then you have more time. If you're, usually if you're doing research at the university, you have all the time in the world to do all the research that you need. When we're talking about management, it's just like, okay, now I have milfoil here and I needed control because I need this water body to be weed free. What you do, you call Steven, the extension weed specialist. You learn as a manager from him everything that he knows. You provide him with the most information that you can about your water body, the weeds that have been there or not, what native species you have. You go to the internet, you look at herbicide labels, and you look at your own about the plant biology. Every single plant, I dare to say that we don't know everything about all the weeds. There's always more to be done, but we know something about every single weed. So there's no weed that you're gonna find nothing about. So as a manager, you can do your own research and you can find the university extension specialist should help you. And keep in mind, the extension specialist is not his job to provide you with a management plan, but just some idea of what you could do to help. Now, like, on June 1st you spray, on July 7th you harvest, so it's not a management plan delivered to you. But it's an amazing help, and there is some information about every single weed out there. Maybe not everything that you need, and we have some weeds that's actually very hard to control that we don't know how to control yet. Just all the research has been done, but how do you control it? We know how to keep it in check and from spreading, from becoming even worse, but how to achieve your education. Many of the weeds we don't. Job security, we have jobs for life, because it's pretty darn hard to eradicate any weed, aquatic or terrestrial. They're smart, they outsmart us every time we come up with new technique, they outsmart us.
All right, so one more hand, if I think relative. This concludes the teaching portion of this. I'm gonna stop the Zoom in the recording, and the rest of the time will be the students, the Dr. Ortiz for Q&A. So thank you.